How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to TheBlueShifting and welcome back to Chaos Head, which is really kind of interesting because last time we were here, like, things seemed to kick off where we got the weird phone call and we answered it and it was like an ear-piercing, like skull-ripping sound. But it seems like that might have happened like everywhere because there were students at the school who were just like passed out on the floor, other people who were just running around confused. Yua, right? Oh my gosh, it's sad that I can't. I'm blanking on the name, but she got like a weird phone call where like she's somehow involved in something. It's weird, and the sky turned all white and gray, rather like filled with like a cloud or something. It was really crazy, and it's funny because I recorded that. And within like a day, I got sick first it was influenza, and then like I got better. And within 2 days of getting better, I got sick with COVID. So it's like that, like the ear ringing sound just hit me and just just attacked me with disease. It wasn't really, but it feels like it attacked me. But now we're here, we're finally back. Thank you so much for your patience. We're finally going to continue the story because now we're going to figure out what the heck's going on. And obviously we won't know why it's happening yet per se, but something happened. The implication was also from, was it Momasa? Who, she was the Bam's informant, and she talked about, like, looking into that strange, like, magnetic activity that was happening in Shibuya and this buildup of energy, and I guess there was, like, a doctor who was making a statement saying that, like, that energy could be released, and if it happened, it would be disastrous. Maybe that's what that was, is like some kind of magnetic super tension that finally just like decoupled, and I could understand that interfering with communication devices, so maybe that's what it's supposed to be, but well, I bet you we won't get answers for a long time, but now we're going to see, alright, what's the plan, what's moving forward, what's happening? Maybe not like why it's happening yet, but what is happening. So, let's just see. If it were a day like any other, getting released from a lengthy meeting should have put Ban Yasuji in a good mood. However, today was not a normal day. The detective removed himself from his peers, moved to the nearest window, and attempted irritably to call his junior. Suwa, his partner, had not shown up to today's meeting. I get wanting to play hooky on this, but did you really have to leave me to go it alone? Darn kid, Ban thought to himself. After first glance, Suwa may have appeared lighthearted, but in actuality, he was quite a diligent man and took his job very seriously. With this being Ban's opinion of him, what had happened today was quite the shock. He had attempted to call him several times, but it always went to voicemail. Ever since he had heard a fairly unsettling story from Momosa 2 days prior, Ban had been faced with a constant feeling of uneasiness. And today, only more troubles had been added to the pile. There was the incident with Suwa, but that was not all. When Ban was reporting about the GE rate earlier this morning, he was immediately shot down by Matsunaga. We don't have time for crackpot theories, the superior said. Could you not add to the pile, kid? I've had enough of 1 week. Ban waved his fan at his face repeatedly and let out a small sigh. And right when he did, the call connected. He heard a voice of his junior on the other end. The reception was extremely poor. What part of the countryside did Suwa lose himself in? Ban thought, scratching his head. So, interrogating suspects on my way, you know? I don't know. As Ban shouted into his receiver, Suwa's voice disappeared into the other end, replaced by a continuous rustling sound. Okay. So what's your way? The way Suwa acted on his own without getting permission was not something that was worthy of praise. However, Ban could not help but smile wryly to himself as he too was taking unauthorized actions even now. He considered that perhaps he was a bad influence on his junior. Oh? Wow, how are you gonna do that? The color in Ban's eyes shifted. Hmm.
とにかく一度戻ってこい。わかったか？
いや、自分もう少し調べてみるっすから。
あ？おい、ちょっと待て。
大丈夫っす。任せ。
That's weird. That's like, Suwa seems to be very diligent, but like a straight-laced kind of guy. Like, why would he suddenly go off the handle and ignore orders? That's very strange. Right at that moment, the area below Ban's feet began to shake. The shaking gradually increased in intensity. It was hard to even stand up straight. Unable to maintain his balance for any longer, Ban got down to the floor. The other detectives, who at first seemed to be underestimating the seriousness of the situation, all quickly moved under their tables. The clock fixed to the wall, the paper cups, the pens atop the tables, the projector equipment, they all crashed to the floor one by one. The two whiteboards standing side by side near the podium fell to the ground as well. It's like being stuck in some insane turbulence. That was how it felt to Ban. It felt like the ground was disappearing beneath him. His entire body was being swung left and right by the shaking. It seemed to have seismic intensity of around 5 or 6. Had the great Kanto earthquake finally arrived? Of all times for it to hit, it hits now? Immediately after thinking that, a fierce pain shot through Ban, causing him to groan out in pain. It felt as if he'd taken a vicious blow to the head. But he had not been physically struck by anyone. It was simply a severe headache. Suddenly, a scream echoed through the conference room. Gritting his teeth, Ban looked up to see one of the detectives gripping his head as he writhed in agony. And then, like a lifeless doll, he fell to the ground with a thump. Most of the other detectives were gripping their heads as well, their faces contorted in pain. What was this headache that bore no resemblance to any he'd ever experienced before? Whether it was connected to the earthquake, there was no way for Ban to know. Eventually, the shaking gradually subsided. With his vision blurred, Ban looked out the window. Everything was covered in a milky white light. A light so dazzling, Ban could no longer keep his eyes open. It's even bright for me. Jeez. I'm not even in like a dark room. I imagine if you were like playing this in the dark, that would have been like awful. Oh, he's not dead. Holy crap. As I opened my eyes, I felt a pain sharp enough to crack my skull open. I found myself slumped over in the middle of my room. I tried getting up, but the pain in my head suddenly shot to the rest of my body, and I nearly fainted from the agony, let out a pained groan. Holy crap. Can we even get out of here? After 5 full minutes of pure writhing torture, the pain receded slightly, and I managed to stand up by using the leg of my bed to support myself. I wiped off the cold sweat from my forehead with my hand. My room was completely devastated. It was as if a tornado had ripped through it. All my waifus lined up on the shelf had toppled over, and some had even fallen off the shelf entirely. The bed was now sitting at an angle, and the pile of eroge and packages had crumbled to the floor and scattered everywhere. What the heck had happened? If I remembered correctly, it had been a phone call that played the melody of You May Pass before the transitioning to something like an ambulance siren. It was exactly the same as last time. Same number, same call. That's right. Right when the buzzard sounded, I heard the ground roar, and immediately after that, my whole body felt like it was boiling and melting. Then, I couldn't remember a darn thing. It was all completely blank. Oh no. Was it an EM wave attack from Shogun? What if Shogun was capable of something similar to what was in the patent I'd found? Just the thought alone sent a chill down my spine. While trying my best to endure the headache, I looked up from the ceiling. Of course, there wasn't anything to see up there. But if he was reading my mind, he'd have to be using a satellite that'd be in orbit way up there. And what's the funny thing is, like, he's kind of right. If you think about it from the side adventure side, like with the shared universe, right? The technology and the streaming. Kurisu, one of the things I mentioned, I kind of like got lost in the sauce afterwards, so I didn't bring it up a whole lot, but I remember one of the things I thought was odd. I was like, why can Kurisu, after she sets about this whole idea of like setting up the time leap machine, which scans your brains, and then you send the data compressed through a Kerr black hole at CERN to send it back in time, then it gets routed to a satellite that then beams it to a cell phone and broadcasts it from the cell phone to the person, right? Like that whole sequence, it's something we know. It's a confirmed fact. I always thought it was weird. Why did she just have access to a satellite that happened to be in what seemed like geosynchronous orbit with Japan? Like, it just seemed weird that the infrastructure was essentially already in place for her to utilize that technology. The hardest part of that technology was actually being able to compress down the data of the machine into a device that she could just build on her own that wasn't tied to the device that was similar back in America. But not only did she recreate that device, but she also was able to then get access to the CERN Super Collider's black hole generator to access, activate, and use whenever they needed to. Like, the fact that those things correlated is really insane. But it's also insane to think that the satellite that was able of projecting these types of data packets into cell phones directly, circumventing the entire like normal security systems, I'd assume, of the networks, and being able to call directly this complicated like uncompressed data that goes beaming into your mind via microwaves, which again, insanity. I always talked about how insane that was, but the idea that that satellite was already there to be able to transmit it is odd, right? And this is another case of that, where it seems like that technology is being accessed in some way or another, which it seems like that there's a satellite capable of hosting and projecting these types of signals already exists and is in station above Japan. So is that the conspiracy that they built like a network of like, I don't know, like Starlink essentially, like of satellites that are around in the planet and can broadcast these types of like high fidelity signals? Like, it's just the implications of that and the level of preparation and like financing that's backing all of these crazy ideas is insane. But considering what Senna had told me before, that patent system could already be in use. Maybe it was in use, that a few people were already abusing it. And maybe Shogun was among them. No, there's no way. It was way too far-fetched. There was no way an old fart like him with one foot in the grave would have private access to satellites. Unless he was one of the key persons behind the top-secret black project sanctioned by the government? Scaring myself with my own delusions wasn't helping anything. Since something had actually happened, I decided to look up what the hell it was online. Still fighting my headache, I crawled toward my computer. Yeah, we haven't seen it. Computer should have still been on. The monitor should still be displaying wallpaper with Seratan on it, but it was pitch black. I mean, big enough earthquake like that alone, regarding anything else that's going on, I imagine power outages are pretty common. I hadn't set it up to automatically go into sleep mode, so it wouldn't make any sense for it to do that. I was feeling dizzy. It was as if I had no strength left in my body. Even standing up took almost everything I had. God, that's reminding me again, like, that's what sucks about getting sick, is like you can like look at your body and it feels like there's like you look fine, but you feel so just dragged down. And like whatever happened to him, he's like had essentially in a medical emergency. But the whole city has, which is really scary. Grating my teeth, I attempted to move the mouse around. No response. Next, I tried pressing the power button. Oh, it actually is turning on. That's good. After a second, the hard disk started emitting its typical scratching noise. I sank down in my chair. As I was waiting for my PC to boot, I frantically grabbed my phone, which was still on my desk. I checked the time. Oh.
13時
So it's been like 2 hours. Before I'd gotten that phone call, what time had it been back then? I was browsing the ISA stuff on that channel. I'm pretty sure like it showed a picture of his phone. I thought it said like 11:15 or something. When I tried using my brain, the stabbing pain coursed through. It got even worse. Think the time. Remember the time. It couldn't have been. Yeah, it hadn't been noon yet, which meant
1時間以上も気絶してた
or maybe I'd been sleepwalking and I'd ended up wandering off somewhere else for an hour.
僕は無遊病じゃない
Also, buddy, if there's anything, there's evidence in the room that would denote that you couldn't have got out. I don't think you can currently. I shook my head violently, trying to stop thinking about things that would make me sick to think back into negative bullcrap. As I did so, my vision wobbled from the pain still hammering in my head. It was like a lump of lead was sitting in the middle of my skull. And when I looked at my PC monitor, I saw... Ooh, what the fetch?
おい
Oh, no.
マジで
So, It's funny because I actually had this happen kind of recent. Not this, but like, so it's check your hardware vendor for the BIOS update, disable BIOS memory options, such as caching or shadowing. You need to use safe mode, remove disable content. So the BIOS is basically, from what I understand, I'm not a computer guy, but because I actually had to fix a BIOS issue with my PC, like about a week and a half ago, I believe it's basically it's so. You have your programs, and then underneath them, kind of the back foundation of them, is your operating system: Windows, Linux, Mac OS. Or I'm sure there's others that are just really less common. But beneath that, you have just core functional, like, building block program parameters. There's stuff that like are intrinsic to just how a motherboard works and interacts with the different parts of the PC. I believe that's your computer's BIOS. It's the basic information operating system. I don't know if that's what it actually abbreviates to, but it would make sense if it's like a core operating system that's not tied to anything in specific. It's just like basic functional. So if his BIOS are gone or have been corrupted, his computer is effectively dead. It's basically saying, like, look, you need to start trying recovery options now. There's a good chance that some of your core functionalities are completely broken. And like a problem like this, like you might literally have to install all your basic and your operating systems. Like it might mean a reset of the entire PC. This problem, if it is what I'm thinking it is, could literally be something that would take like a day to fix. Now, granted, he's a pretty savvy computer guy, so there's a good chance he's got, especially this time period, it was pretty common to have like a backup disk or even a thumb drive of your operating system, because like this stuff can happen, especially if you push your PC. And then also, he probably just knows enough to maybe have like a physical or a memory backup, like a refresh or reinstall type of base, just in case your computer catches something and you have to like kind of brick it essentially. Anyway, what the heck? No way, the hard disk data was corrupted.
嘘だ。そんなのありえない。あっちゃダメだ。そんなことになったら全てが終わる。
It's not the end of everything, bro. Trust me. Especially because, heck, for one thing, your favorite video game is an online game. You just need to sign in from a different PC. You've proven you can do that. Anyway, the other thing about this too, though, is like this is starting to seem more and more like it might have been a release of an electromagnetic pulse. Not entirely, because a true electromagnetic pulse would have fried all the electronics, and it's clear that electronics are still working. But it could have disrupted like a magnetic fluctuation could affect delicate mechanisms, which is interesting though, because this is an issue with a hard disk, and a hard disk is actually a rather sturdy source of memory. Now it does degrade over time and it might need to be switched out or updated over time. I run a hard disk pretty hard on this PC because I use it to store the large files for making videos, which means that while most people could get a hard disk and have it run easily for 20, 30 years, I burned through one in like 6 years. Like literally like broke it and had to kind of rescue whatever files I could and then upgrade to a new system. So it's something I'm going to pay attention to more closely, and like when I see the wear and tear signs, I might manually switch it out for a new one and kind of dump memory from one to another before it has a chance to break. Anyway, I'm rambling a lot about computers. It's funny because I really don't know much about them. I've learned things over time, but I really don't know that much. It was where I started my size collection of R18 Moe pics. Okay, that's probably gone because I doubt you had that backed up. My Rogue save data. All my bookmarks for sites I browse daily. Now I guess that might be more physical. My minimum attendance chart. And the thing I treasure the most. My ESO save data. Is it not client-based? You're telling me everything's gone. I wanted to cry out in frustration. I wanted to smash my keyboard in anger. I wanted to kick the wall with everything I had. Before I did anything, though, I needed to check if I could restore it. But my whole body was still heavy and my headache refused to go away. All I could do was bite my lip and sink deeper into my chair. It was over. My life was over. Losing my ESO data meant I had no reason left to live. That's not true, bro. Nothing matters more. anymore. I had it all. It had all burned away. Just kill me. See, that's the problem, though. If it meant so much to you, why on earth didn't you have it backed up? Like, I'd be sad if this computer suddenly like croaked, and I would lose a lot of stuff. I would be sad to lose, but I wouldn't lose anything that would be like ending of everything. I could pick back up the pieces and move forward again if I had to. In fact, I've even like learned from my mistakes and have made some like relatively recent backups occasionally where I just try and keep core files that I might need in the near future if something were to happen. But like he's talking about this like it matters, like it's like life or death. Why on earth wouldn't you back it up if it felt that important?
待って、タッキー。
Yeah? What an angelic smile on her face, Sarah tangentially called me from atop my desk.
冷静になりなよ。円数みたいなオンラインのゲームってセーブデータは全部サーバーに保存されてるんじゃない？
Yeah, she's right. By server, you mean the dev server?
だからたとえタッキーの PC が壊れてもナイトハルトッチのデータは消えてないはずっしょ？
She's right. Oh, you're right. I was so dizzy and confused, I'd forgotten even the basics. Felt like I'd finally found a ray of hope shining through the endless despair. I knew I could depend on my waifu. Alright. I still have to give up my treasured pics and my MP3s that hadn't backed up, though. I need to start reformatting the OS as quickly as possible. And I wanted to see with my own two eyes that the ESO data was safe. Though, in order to do that, the headache that was still torturing me had to stop. Unfortunately for me, the pain didn't feel like it would be going away anytime soon. Right. Well, let's see how things play out now. Is this going to be, There's rarely a moment in which the screens of Shibuya Station were not colored with advertisements, video clips, or music videos from the latest popular artists. And yet, currently, the screens were instead displaying a female anchor with a grave expression on her face. It was an ongoing special TV broadcast. Sensational words decorated the top left of the screen. S15 earthquake in Shibuya, over 200 casualties. Holy crap. Earthquakes were not particularly unexpected in Japan. The Tokyo metropolitan area had already fallen victim to several seismic intensity 5 earthquakes over the years. However, as the media gathered more and more information about the incident, the sheer number of casualties made it clear this was no ordinary earthquake. Yeah, that's the thing. It's like a 5 or 6 is a real rough shake. There's gonna be damage, but it's very unlikely to lead to deaths. Injuries, maybe. Deaths, no. It was especially peculiar when compared to the 2005 earthquake, also seismic intensity 5, where no fatalities had been reported. Moreover, the epicenter was Shibuya. The center was already the center of attention in Japan due to the NewGen incidents. Therefore, there had already been an earthquake in Shibuya approximately 3 months prior. It was a seismic intensity 3 quake, and 8 people had died. Okay, wow, that's even crazier. I've experienced a 4 earthquake. It's scary, but it's not like like the circumstances leading to someone having to die would have to be pretty like specific. Maybe Shibuya's cursed. That was what people people observing the breaking news about the latest earthquake were thinking, even if they were not saying it aloud. In any case, each station had started their special broadcast right when the earthquake hit. Information was having trouble circulating, and the total death count was still unclear. Nonetheless, the female anchor continued to report. Reading from a stack of paper, she declared, "The Fire and Disaster Management Agency has confirmed 31 deaths, and the number is expected to rise as they continue to aid those affected. The cause of death remains unknown, but the..." Furthermore, various reports described a mysterious white light appearing immediately after the earthquake had hit. According to these reports, the light had been accompanied by a massive shockwave and had turned the sky completely white. The cameras spread across Shibuya's scrambled crossing had caught the aforementioned light on tape, and after the earthquake ended, nothing but pure white footage was displayed on a loop in the jumbotrons located there. The discoloration that had appeared alongside the earthquake had not simply been a dull white, however, it had been utterly blinding. Shibuya had been momentarily enveloped in light, a sheer glare forcing each and every resident's eyes shut. If there were an era of war, the people would have undoubtedly believed it had been coming from a nuclear weapon. As a matter of fact, there were some who claimed it had spotted a white mushroom cloud floating a few hundred meters above Shibuya, though it was quick to vanish. No one knew what the origin of that light was, nor if it was connected to the earthquake. Then, just as mysteriously as its arrival, the white sky had returned to its original color in less than an hour, and now the dull blue lay above the people of Shibuya. Guess it is possible. I mean, we did see what looked like the effects of at least an electromagnetic phenomena, and that is triggered by a fusion reaction. Like fusion nuclear bombs do emit an EMP. It can be very severe, but we've never truly at least as far as I know, I don't know if there's any open data about how relevant and how devastating those could be. But there has been a theory that you don't even need to detonate a nuke on the ground to do tons of damage. You could launch a nuke into low orbit or high atmosphere and detonate it in the sky. And whilst the explosion and shockwave from the explosion itself would be shocking and could do some damage, it would be the EMP that would do the most damage. It would be an interruption. Maybe they're theorizing that that's what happened. I'm guessing that's not, but it actually is a more viable possibility than you might initially think, because that it would be it could be something along these lines if somebody were to detonate a nuke in really high orbit above a city, but then that light would be something that would be spotted well beyond Shibuya. It would be visible probably across most of the country if it were that high in the air. But anyway, the asphalt of Dogenzaka was very slightly cracked, its damage only millimeters wide. And the multi-tenanted buildings, together with many other structures along the center guy, had all had small crevices along their walls. Now he fixed up the room. The reformatting of my OS had taken nearly 2 hours to finish, and yet my headache still hadn't gone away. I'd even lost consciousness a few times from the pain. I'd passed out on my keyboard from exhaustion before, but today was the first time I'd literally passed out. On the plus side, though, the pain was way more bearable now than it had been 2 hours ago. I wet my throat with some cola, then summoning all my energy, stood up. I fixed my broken bed, made it level again, cleaned my floor to the extent I'd be able to walk around. It took a lot of effort to do because of how weak I was feeling, but it had to be done. I wouldn't have been able to leave my own room otherwise. If Shogun were to attack again, not that I actually knew if it was him this time, I would have been trapped and unable to escape. In other words, I'd be completely fetched. I had to secure an escape route or else. Once I'd finished reformatting my OS and cleaning my room, I went straight to the PC, installed ESO, and tried logging into Baselard. Okay, I'm gonna also say this again. Establishing an escape route. You have one. One will not save you. If someone's attacking you, they're going to attack you from the direction of your escape. That means you don't have an escape route. That's why they always say, have 2 routes of exit. That's why it's code to have at least another way of getting out of a place. So if you're trapped from one direction, you're not just screwed. This is one of the worst places to be trapped in a disaster, is this container. That's why people don't normally live in these. There he is.
やった。やった。ナイトハルトは消えてない。装備とかも全部無事だ。よかった。よかった。
I was so moved I tried to get up and pump my fist in the air, but even that took too much energy, so I gave up halfway through. I couldn't have been more happy to see my other self alive and well, though I thought he was gone forever. Okay, time for the next step. While it was definitely a huge load off my shoulders, I still wanted to try and figure out what exactly had even happened, not to mention demand compensation and a formal apology. I like how his game save was more important than looking at the news to see what had happened. He doesn't even know about the earthquake, probably. It seemed like an earthquake, but there were way too many things that didn't add up if that were true. I looked for Grim inside Baselard, but he was nowhere to be found. I went to check the chat room, but since I'd lost my bookmarks, I had trouble finding it. When I eventually did, though, I discovered that Grim wasn't there either. Of all times he'd gone AWOL, why now? With no options left, I had no choice but to head straight to Taboo itself. On it, I found the following article: over 200 casualties in Shibuya. Though there really had been an earthquake, it had been a seismic intensity 5 quake, and loads of people had died. The casualties were currently set at 200, but the article stated that number may even go beyond that. There were also reports of Shibuya's sky turning pure white for a short period of time, as well as a giant mushroom cloud, though no one knew if either of those were connected to the earthquake. The earthquake was also being discussed on that channel, with people posting things like more Shibuya stuff, or Shibuya's over, or whatever else. There was also a video uploaded there showing footage of Scramble Crossing that had been taken from various surveillance cameras.
これ、地震だけじゃないよね。
When it happened, it had been hit with a terrible headache, and it wasn't just your normal headache. I felt like my head was boiling. And even now, almost 2 hours later, I'm still experiencing throbbing pain and fatigue.
電子レンジに閉じ込められたら、あんな風になるかもしれない。
I mean, that he's not wrong. That could be what it was. It's a massive release of electromagnetic waves, and it might have been cooking people from the inside. Though it's odd that it seemed to affect some people more than others. That's the part that's really got me interested, because it was just like a blast of microwaves. It should have hit everybody roughly the same. It shouldn't be picking and choosing some people to be affected more than others, because that would imply that there's some kind of chemical or physical difference between each person. And while there are differences between us in large and effect when it comes to like the amount of water in a person, that's pretty consistent. If I thought about it that way, my delusion that Shogun was after me with an EM wave attack might not have been so far-fetched. Oh, right after that moment, I heard the familiar sound coming from my PC. It was the notification tone that played whenever someone entered the chat room. Grim might have joined. I wanted to get the full story of what had happened, so I opened up the chat room. Oh no, I had a feeling it was going to be him. The moment I saw that name, a shriek escaped my mouth. What was with the timing? Could he actually read my mind after all? The hand was using to hold the mouse was trembling. My entire body was frozen in fear, overriding even my headache. Just looking at Shogun's name made me feel sick, but I couldn't look away. I wanted to close the chat room, but I was in such a state of shock, my mind and body felt like they'd been ripped apart. I tried to desperately move my mouse, but my body simply refused to listen to me. I felt chills on the nape of my neck. I was being watched. God's gaze. Or maybe it wasn't God. Maybe it was Shogun's gaze being shot down from an orbiting satellite. It might be. It really might be. Oh, right. It actually really might be. If they've had this satellite system, I talked about that earlier. I talked about how like it seems like it would already be installed, that it's already active, right? That it had been installed and in place for a good while. Now, when he made that prediction about the kids, like the tour, like the bus crashing and his teacher dying, he got sent to the psych ward where he was watched very closely. And there was always that guy in the black suit that was paying attention to stuff. And we're pretty sure those are from Nozomi. This corporation seems to be doing these weird things. If they're using that device and they're tracking people and looking for people who can use delusions and pull them into the real world, they might have put him on a watch list. And that watch list might have meant that they were using the satellite to track them, these people of interest. And if that's the case, he might be feeling the instinct, the recognition of some type of focus, of electromagnetic like focus on him. It's one of those things where it's like, I think I've mentioned it before, it's like there is something to it, like beyond just like coincidence when you have that feeling of being watched. There's something about it. There's something about our instincts, our subconscious that can recognize when somebody's paying a little too close attention to us and it tries to warn us with our instinct. So what if that instinct is just being triggered by the satellite when its gaze focuses on him? Why does it focus on him when it does? I don't know. But maybe that really, he might not be wrong. He might actually be onto something here. Just leave me alone. I wanted to run away. But where would I run? Didn't matter where I went. Even if I went to the very edge of Japan, he'd still catch me. It's been a long time. That was the first thing Shogun said to me. He'd said it like he was just casually saying hello to a friend he hadn't seen in a while. But I knew for a fact I'd never ever considered this guy a friend. My teeth sank into my lip as I stared at the words written across the monitor. However, instead of making me freeze out of fear, the message from Shogun instead sent me grabbing for my phone. It was past 3 p.m. At this hour, classes are still probably in session, but surely my situation wasn't hopeless. If Rimi was here, she could do something. That's what I wanted to believe. I went to my address book, although it wasn't much of a book considering how empty it was, and called Rimi's phone number.
助けて、リミ。
Do you hate me?
リミ、早く。出て。
It was hard to breathe. I couldn't think straight. Rimi wasn't picking up. There's no voice on the other end, only a monotonous dialing sound repeating endlessly. Why? Whenever I'm in trouble, you're always there for me. Why aren't you answering? I have a present for you. Oh no. Oh, I don't like that. A present. Yeah, I don't like this. You're gonna send me some more disgusting crap. And this time you're gonna blame me for it. You're gonna pin me as the NewGen culprit. No, anything but that. It's not me. I'm not the culprit. Jeez, like gasping. Felt like a fish had been ripped out of the water. I was losing oxygen. My mind was going fuzzy. My only ray of hope was Rimi. I grasped my phone tighter and tighter, playing with all my might at the other end of the call. She picked up.
助けて。
留守番電話サービスにおつなぎします。
I hope it pleases you. Voicemail? That couldn't be. Oh. I don't know if we should... Discouraged, I hung up the phone and wrapped my arms around myself. I don't know if we should delude here. I want to know what Shogun's gonna show. Like, I'm sure we will, but I feel like... God, this is way too important. He needs to focus on this. Before I knew it, my body started trembling. I was more afraid of Shogun than I thought I was. But why wouldn't I be? He wasn't a homicidal maniac posing as a handicapped person. He'd already committed 5 unspeakable crimes. And I was the next one in his sights.
助けてよ。
I'm sorry, man. I need to see what happens here. So far, every time I'd murmured that, Rimi showed up with perfect timing, and yet despite that, she wasn't picking up the phone. My gaze wandered around the room, eventually landing on the fake D-sword leaning up against the corner. I grabbed it and held it in my hand, clinging to the little hope I had. It was just a toy. ISA assured me of that. But I wanted to think that maybe, just maybe, there was still a chance. As long as I had the D-sword, I could be saved. It could even strike back against Shogun's attacks. So please, I beg you. I held up the D-sword and focused on the tip. Please become real. Please save me.
ディソード。真の姿を現せ。
I closed my eyes tightly and directed all my strength into the hand grasping the hilt. Silence. I slowly opened my eyes. Nothing had changed. It was just a toy.
くそーくそくそくそーこの役立たせ。
I violently threw the toy sword to the floor and began pacing around my room. Biting my nails, I searched through my possible options. But I was so overwhelmed by terror I couldn't even think straight. I tried to think harder, but my head started hurting again, so there was nothing to do but go back to the computer. You could leave, but it's not you. Oh. Shogun had already left the chat room, all that remained were those 4 lines. I didn't want to see any of it, so I hurriedly closed the chat room while Shogun wasn't in it. My body was still trembling. Shogun was trying to provoke me. Was it fun fetching with me like this? Had I been chosen as the next victim, and this was meant to, and this was the means to that end, or was I just perfect person to pin his crimes on?
誰か助けて。助けてよ。
I stared at the post-awakening version Saratan as if I was clinging to my own refuge.
一人は怖いんだ。
Being alone is scary. I didn't want to be alone. I wanted someone to be by my side. I wanted someone to protect me.
そうだ。学校だ。学校へ行けば。
Rimi will be there. I couldn't bear staying here alone with my spiraling anxiety. So I took out my worn-out sweatshirt that I usually wore around the house and threw on my uniform and left my base. This is very interesting for him, actually. But his refuge has become like a den of fear. Oh no. This sounds like an empty space again. Once I was hit with the cold air of the outside world, my headache ever so slightly subsided. The city had more restless atmosphere than usual, probably due to the earthquake from earlier. I didn't know that for sure, though. In the distance, the sound of sirens continued to echo endlessly, but I wasn't sure if they was from ambulances or fire trucks. Could have been both. Yamadadori, which was 1 block away from me, was completely jammed up. Traffic was bumper to bumper. There were multiple visible accidents, most head-on. The cars involved had simply been left abandoned on the road. Their drivers nowhere to be found. Oh my gosh, yeah, that actually explains a lot. I bet you that the 200 plus casualties and all the injuries are mostly people who were in their cars when they got headaches so severe that they either like got too distracted or passed out whilst traveling in a vehicle. Those abandoned cars were the cause of the traffic jam. The other drivers were honking their horns like crazy. As I was wandering the streets to get to school, I saw a dog crossing the road barking. It was a chihuahua sprinting at full speed, dragging its leash behind its small body. Its eyes were bloodshot and a large amount of drool was dripping from its open mouth. It had probably gotten separated from its owner, and it looks sick. As I absentmindedly watched it get further and further away, I tripped on something and nearly fell over. The asphalt was cracked, and one section of the road was even so slightly lower than the rest. It had most likely come from the earthquake. Stopping right there, I looked up at the sky. There were a few white clouds drifting calmly across the dull light blue. Just after the earthquake had hit, something similar to an aurora had formed in the sky and tainted it pure white, but the traces of it had already disappeared. This isn't right. This isn't Shibuya. I couldn't calm down the slightest. Not just because of the earthquake, and not because of the headache either. It wasn't just those, but a certain urge that there was threatening to overtake me. For some reason, walking around like this, it made me feel like I wanted to kill someone. What the fetch? That's really random. By the time I got to school gate, the anxiety and sense of dread I'd been feeling were increasing by the second. I had chills, my body wouldn't stop shivering, and my headache was coming back. When I looked closely, I noticed a group of students formed around the 3rd building. I looked for Rimi within them. For some odd reason, everyone was looking toward the top of the building, and even those who weren't soon followed suit, almost like a bunch of lemmings. Oh, well, there's usually a good reason for that.
Oh, Taku!
Hey, man. Misumi-kun rushed over to me. I should ask him where Rimi was.
お前、今日学校来てたんだな。いや、そんなん今はどうでもいいから。
He looked gravely serious and his face was pale. Seeing Misumi-kun like this was very unusual. What the hell was going on?
マジで。やばいよな。あれ。
Yeah, I gathered. Things are bad? What did that mean? What was that? What was bad?
病気だったんだろ？精神病のことがバレて余計におかしくなっちゃったらしいぜ。
Oh no.
さっき飛べるとか言ってたぜ。やべえよ。やばすぎる。
Oh, you sickos.
俺、人が死ぬとこマジで見てんだけど。
Why? What the fetch?
人黒すぎて最高だぜ。
Oh no, it might be that mass suggestion thing. We saw that device that was like, kind of like, it made all those kids act crazy. What if there's now like a subtle like pulse, like encouraging violence?
早く落ちてこねえかな。
I could hear things like that coming from everywhere around me. Don't tell me. I had a bad feeling about this. Fearfully following the gaze of the other students, I looked up at the school building. What the fetch? No! On the edge of the rooftop stood a single girl. In her hand, just like during the concert, was a D-sword with the pose emblematic of praying to God of the heavens above the edge of the roof. Stood Kishimoto Ayase. Why? What the fetch is
そ
happening?
の体は写真の影に潜む。目には映らない存在。
Kishimoto Ayase felt the wind blowing. The cold wind brought with it a faint hint of winter. Her expression inundated with pain. Huge drops of sweat formed on her face as she faced the chilled gales.
離れようとも離れようとも冷めぬ悪夢は。
The Suime Academy rooftop was enclosed by a 2-meter-high wire fence. Ayase was standing on the other side of it, occupying a space only around 30 centimeters. 10 minutes had passed since she had first started standing there. One more step, she'd fall from the roof in the 4-story school building. Many students were gathered below Ayase, watching her with bated breath.
やがて剣となりて
この身を切り裂くのだろう。
I don't like this. Although the police and emergency services had already been contacted, they had yet to arrive, likely due to the earthquake that only hit a few hours prior. The teachers were running around in a panic, scrambling to get the gym mats ready in case of worst possible outcome.
無関心という名の盾で戦火を免れる人々。
And yet, ISA stood completely still, unperturbed by the ruckus below, or rather, she had deliberately cut herself off from the rest of the world that lay beneath her. As she gazed up to the sky, ISA closed her eyes, her pose emulative of that of a maiden praying to the heavens. Due to her good sense of balance, the wind did not manage to sway her slender body, a fact made all the more impressive by her grasping a sword as long as she was tall.
神聖なる戦場の敵は心の内の悪意なるもの。
The sword, her D-sword, was blinking with a pale blue light as if synchronized with it. ISA's labored breathing continued, and then she began to murmur once more.
悪意は時として意志を持ち、そしてその姿を表す。
The verses she unfolded through her murmurs soon vanished into the wind. Good grief, I can't talk. ISA opened her eyes and gazed at the crimson sky spreading over the buildings of Shibuya. So she's the only one who can see this, right?
この世界は悪意の妄想に満ち溢れている。みんな他人の不幸が大好き。目を閉じても耳を塞いでもダメ。
I mean, she's not wrong, unfortunately. Dang.
昔からずっと私のそばを離れてくれないわ。
As she breathed this soliloquy into the air, ISA pulled her gigantic sword to her chest and gently embraced it with both arms. Curiously, the sharp sword didn't leave a single injury on her.
帰りたかった。大いなる意志が住むもう一つの世界に。そのために心を切り刻んで全部受け入れたわ。混沌の器としての夢を。
ISA's face twisted in sorrow, tears quietly spilling from her eyes. Droplets flowing voicelessly were all swiftly carried away by the wind.
だけどグラジオールの帯同が活発化している。もう時間がないのに見つからないのよ。天国の扉も賢者も導き手も七つの神罰も。
What are you talking about?
黒騎士の伝説は本当なの。歌はもうたくさん歌ったわ。それで足りないって言うならね。大いなる意志よ。
ISA spread her arms out wide and far, as if trying to embrace the sky itself, as if trying to show her presence to God on high.
私は飛ぶわ。
The pale blue pulsation of her sword intensified. ISA closed her eyes once more, and in that moment, a final tear dropped from the corner of her eye. Fetch me.
お願い。この器は差し出すから魂を連れて行って。
And then, without a moment's hesitation, the girl, with nothing there to support her, took a step forward. Fetch me.
帰るべき場所へ。
Why? She felt the cold caress on her cheek. Her gaze fell to the earth. Looming closer as she fell was a door, a gate. On the other side of it was the sky ISA desired. I couldn't do anything but watch it unfold. After ISA spread her arms out, she slowly stepped into the thin air as if taking a step down a non-existent staircase. Screens began to build among the spectators, coalescing in one gigantic roar. With nothing left to support her, ISA, like a puppet whose strings had been cut, fell headfirst toward the ground. Everything appeared to be in slow motion. Ayase's body was going to crash into the ground. Her descent was incredibly slow. But she was definitely falling. She was gonna die. Ayase was gonna die. I couldn't do anything to stop it. I couldn't save someone falling from that high. And there was nothing but concrete below her. It would crush all her bones, rupture her organs, and make her dark blood a gray matter spurt across the ground. If only there was a flower bed or something. If only there was something soft below her. If there was, maybe it could save her. I didn't want to see someone die. As I went to close my eyes, for an ephemeral moment I felt chills on the nape of my neck. Is he gonna summon something? I looked behind me, but not a soul was standing there. Everyone was either looking down, averting their eyes, or looking up at her. Whose eyes are those eyes? Sound shook the air. The sound of a person crashing down. It was the first time I'd ever heard that sound. But it had a lot less impact than I was expecting.
まさか。
Next to me stood Misumi-kun, his eyes wide as dinner plates. I expected his gaze to be tainted by dread, but the way he stared at the place Ayase had fallen was one of surprise, not horror. As it wasn't just Misumi-kun that was like that. All the spectators looked like they had no idea what was going on. They all were lost for words.
生きて。
Okay. How? Huh? She was alive. Holy crap. He did. Ayase wasn't getting up. I couldn't tell if her bones were crushed. I couldn't tell if her organs had ruptured. But her gray matter hadn't spurted everywhere, nor had her dark blood. A small, feeble groan escaped from Ayase's mouth. She was alive. She seemed to be unconscious and she wasn't moving, but she was alive. She was barely even injured. There was only a small drop of blood on her forehead. She had fallen from the rooftop. But there she was, lying almost completely unharmed, lying atop a flower bed.
花壇に。
Holy crap, dude, you did it. Was there always a flower bed there? Oh boy. Oh, that's something. You guys.
予定と結果に大きな違いがあったようだが。
Yeah, I'm sure.
我々は進化への第一歩を踏み出したんですよ。
三桁もの死人が出るなど、我々は聞いておらんぞ。
計画に不備があったのかね。
いいえ、お二人にはぜひ人の進化の歴史というものを振り返ってみていただきたいものですね。
Oh, you can excuse all this by saying like, only the strong survive, the weak have to be cold.
進化には多少の犠牲はつきものという点については異論はないよ。
死人のことなどどうでもいい。重要なのは予定と違うということだ。
想定の範囲内ですよ。私の中ではね。
Yeah, well, it'd be nice if your internal predictions became external ones, like as if you talked about these things.
ならばなぜ事前に我々へ連絡せんのだ。情報をコントロールするにはそれなりの下準備が必要なのだぞ。貴様の推挙のために人や金を犠牲にしてきたわけではない。それを忘れるな。
ご安心を。先ほど申しました通り、すべては想定の範囲内。
Right.
いずれ近いうちに選挙での票集めに苦労することも、強引な勧誘活動を告発される恐れもなくなるでしょう。
Oh, now that's starting to feel really real. Fetch me. That's horrifying.
我々が日本を、いや、世界を変える日もじきに。
口を慎め。
Oh my gosh.
300人委員会への造反が知れれば、我らに待っているのは破滅だけだ。
The Committee of 300? Are you serious? The Committee of 300, a secret organization shrouded in mystery, rumored to manipulate the world from behind the scenes, composed of only 300 members. They are known as the Unseen Rulers. Their subordinates include a royalty among numerous nations, intelligence agencies, and large enterprises. With a focus on banking, they are all mere puppets of the 300, as are any other secret societies that often appear in conspiracy theories. It's said that almost the entire world is bent to their will, whether it be companies, police, research institutes, etc. However, their existence is only a rumor. The Committee of 300's ultimate goal is theorized to be a construction of a so-called New World Order under the Worldwide Human Domestication Project. Outside the few elite, 1 billion humans will be left behind while all others are slaughtered. Those billion that survive will remain as slave subjects to the ruler's administration. So, like, I can't remember if they actually said specifically that was CERN, but that's implying, like, that's what the CERN organization wanted, or at least that's what they were pushing for, was the fulfillment of this, like, goal. And that's what, so in the world lines, there's world line alpha, world line beta, that are, like, kind of contesting. And in recall, that world line alpha is the future where the Community 300 goals are realized. Mass deaths and executions, population control and manipulation through time travel of everyone else. And then in the beta world line is where, like, the people, like, resisted, and the world instead devolved into World War III. So this is a group, Nozomi is a group that is operating with the resources and intelligence from the Committee 300, but they've gone a bit rogue. Interesting.
君の役目は計画通りにことを進めることであって、それ以上でも以下でもないよ。
調整は我々がやる。
承知しています。
それで第2世代についての報告を聞こうか。
お二人にも満足していただける仕上がりですよ。ノア2はね。
Noah 2. And second generation sounds like maybe like kids, like it's the kids that are being able to like manipulate the world and such, like our boy here. Okay. All right, we're gonna stop here. It's a decent place, good, solid ending. Not the longest episode I've ever done, especially with so much ranting in it, but that was a lot. That was a lot to think about and digest. Let's just like take that time to kind of really think about it and kind of talk about that a little bit. So the theorization, it seems like there's an EMP-like event. Could be something related strictly to magnetism, like electromagnetism is, you know, almost, they're two sides of the same coin, essentially. So could have been a big, like, release of magnetism, and maybe that's supposed to be the idea is that, like, it affects things like the brains of birds and things that, like, the animals that you seem to have instinctual ways of knowing which way is north and such. Perhaps it was utilizing that, and that's why it affected people, and some people were just more sensitive. We have the big explosion thing in the sky, or the bright white light could have been potentially from a nuclear device, but it most likely was something else related to this technology. Maybe it's like a mass delusion or something, or whatever. And then apparently Nozomu is like actively doing this to try and bring about a change in people, like an evolution of some kind. We had Ayase, who seemed to get broken by whatever was going on and attempted to end herself, though she didn't feel like she was actually ending herself. She thought she was doing something else. So whatever delusion she was under there, like, that was a dangerous one. I wonder where it came from. But in the end, in the last second, our boy was able to summon a really soft flower bed for her to land in to be safe. That's crazy. He actually pulled something through into reality. I didn't know he had that capability properly. I thought he was going to discover it, but like maybe it was a stress induced. Like he just really wanted to save her. So he actually kind of became a hero. It's really interesting. So now what's he going to do with this information? Is he going to like confront it, or is he going to deny and try and explain it away as he's done up until now? But yeah, perhaps that's a side effect of of whatever happened with the quake and with the blinding light. While it nearly took out a lot of people, maybe the people who were hurt but didn't get taken out have now had their powers expanded. Maybe it's easier for people to pull delusions through now, and that was the whole goal, was to try and make these people who have these abilities more powerful, more capable of doing more greater feats. So maybe that was the whole point. We'll have to see. But anyway, yeah, a lot of interesting stuff. You can say the plot's thickening, that's for freaking sure. Holy crap, I didn't think it was going to get that dark either, but it definitely did. I'm glad that Ayase's okay. I was going to be pretty shocked if they actually, like, ended her there. Like, if that was, like, her whole character arc was just what we saw up until now. So I'm glad she's still around, but I'm curious to see. It's kind of like, it's interesting because it almost paints the stakes being really high and that nothing's guaranteed. But at the same time, it also kind of proves maybe there's plot armor that's protecting the characters we like. I doubt that would last forever, though. Like, we know Steins Gate itself was not shy about, like, putting people down. Like, having death be a real factor and something that has a real tangible effect on the choices that the characters had to face. So I wouldn't be surprised if that is going to be a function that happens here, but we'll have to just see. Anyway, thank you so much for joining me today. Hope you enjoyed yourself, and I'm happy to be back. I'm happy to be making this content again, and so I hope you continue to look forward to it and that we can continue to share these stories together. But when push comes to shove, we're just here to kind of enjoy it and kind of like let the experience play out. And I'm really grateful that you give me this opportunity, because you're here watching, you're spending your time here. It means the world to me, and especially to the patrons and members who are actually supporting the channel directly. Like, that's above and beyond what's necessary. So I'm really grateful to you for that, and I'm gonna do my best to try and make the channel better in every way I can. But you know, ultimately, if you're just here, you're doing more than enough. I'm really grateful for that. Thank you. But time for us to get going. So thank you so much, and until the next video you're watching me up and see me in next. See you there.